Novorossiysk, the port city where Russia keeps what's left of its Black Sea fleet, went through a terrible night.
And it's not me saying that. It was the city's mayor on his Telegram channel yesterday morning, right after declaring a state of emergency. Russia had one last safe place to keep these ships. It had.
4 warships were hid inside the port. 2 of them are frigates.
And Russia only has 2 frigates in the entire Black Sea.
The attack lasted more than 5 hours. 5 hours of air defenses firing without being able to stop what was coming. The city woke up without water. 2 water mains burst, and more than 260,000 people were left without water.
And as if that wasn't enough, Russia's 2 largest grain terminals stopped working. Russia is the largest wheat exporter on the planet. And on the Chicago Board of Trade, which is where the price of wheat is set for the whole world, it went up on the same day. And while all this was happening, Putin was on the other side of the country, 8,000 kilometers away, aboard a cruiser, watching a naval exercise.
And here things start to get even more interesting.
This place is the base where the Russian fleet fled when Crimea became the target. It was the Russians' plan B.
And you know what's worse for them? They don't have a plan C.
In this video, I'm going to show you what happened that night, filmed by those who were down there. And I'm going to show you the trap that Russia got itself into, because they built it with their own hands, thinking it was protection. But let's start with that night. This was filmed from the other side of the bay, with the attack underway. What you're seeing, those red streaks arcing up into the sky, are tracer rounds.
It's ammunition that lights up in the air.
And the gunners use it to see where the shots are going and adjust their aim in the dark. Now, notice the blue beams fanning out. That's not a spotlight.
They're anti-drone dazzlers.
The idea is to shine light into the drone's camera and blind its targeting system before it reaches the target. And right there in the middle, that orange dot slowly coming down is a drone they managed to take down. But for each one that goes down, many get through. And the best way to understand what was flying over that city is to listen to those who were underneath. Damn.
What the hell is that?
It's a jet, damn!
A UFO?
What is that, man? Look! What the order?
Listen to these guys.
They're seeing something they can't name. One of them asks what that thing is.
The other one replies that it's a jet.
And the rest is just cursing. They were right. It really was a jet. A Ukrainian drone with a jet engine called Palyanitsia, which Zelensky himself confirmed was used that night.
And there's another group in a different part of the city filming when one flies low over them.
You can hear the shock in their voices.
На нахуй. На, блин.
It went on like this for 5 hours. And what they hit is even more surprising, because Novorossiysk isn't a naval base with a city around it. It's one of the largest commercial ports in Russia, with a naval base inside. This is the port, at dawn. Those black columns rising like mushrooms, with orange fire at the base, between the cranes, are at the cargo terminal. And in this port, there are 3 things at the same time. There's the Shesker's oil terminal, which alone accounts for more than 30% of all Russian oil exports. There are 2 of the largest grain terminals in the country, one of them with a capacity of 8.5 million tons per year. And there's the naval base, all in the same place. And everything was hit on the same night. Both grain terminals stopped operating. And this isn't just Russia's problem.
That's because Russia is the world's largest wheat exporter, and most of that wheat is exported through the Black Sea.
The price of wheat in Chicago went up by about 3% on the same day.
And the Russian grain lobby had already been warning that if these attacks continue, exports through the Black Sea could stop altogether,
which would push up food prices in Africa and the Middle East. So, an attack on a Russian port affected bread prices on 3 continents, and it wasn't just the port. Residential buildings were hit, cars were destroyed, and the city was left without water.
Now I need to talk about the ships.
because that's the reason Ukraine did this.
Zelensky publicly took responsibility for the operation and called Novorossiysk the last major stronghold of the Russian fleet in the Black Sea.
He said that 3 things were used at the same time in this attack: jet drones, Neptune anti-ship missiles, and naval drones. And look at this one, because it's rare.
This is the onboard camera of a Ukrainian naval drone.
Black and white because it's infrared.
Those pink markings that appear on the ship's hull are the targeting system pointing where to hit. And if you look at the cursor in the center of the screen, it's heart-shaped. Someone programmed that. Yes, it's mockery.
I need to be fair with you about something.
This specific clip isn't from last night. It's from a previous attack in April.
But it's the clearest footage that exists of how these attacks work from the inside.
And here comes the part that matters.
After all, what happened to the ships?
Russia didn't say anything. No confirmation, no numbers, nothing. Total silence.
But nowadays, it's hard to hide because you can look from above. This is a satellite image of the Novorossiysk naval pier taken after the attack. Those 4 ships lined up along the breakwater are the warships.
And notice the dark stains on the deck and on the ground around them on the pier.
Those are burn marks.
You can see scorched superstructure and debris scattered next to the hulls.
According to the Ukrainian General Staff, the ones hit were the frigates Admiral Makarov and Admiral Essen, a missile-launching corvette, and a patrol ship. And there's a detail that adds weight to all of this. The 2 frigates are the only 2 frigates that Russia has in the Black Sea. They launch caliber cruise missiles.
And they're the largest ships left for them after the cruiser Moskva was sunk back in 2022.
And do you know why this is much worse for Russia than losing 4 ships?
Because those ships weren't there by choice.
Before the war, the base of the Russian Black Sea Fleet was Sevastopol in Crimea. It had been their home for more than 2 centuries.
But Ukraine started hitting Crimea with drones and missiles, and Russia was forced to move the ships out of there.
They moved everything to Novorossiysk,
which is farther from Ukraine, on the other side of the Black Sea.
Novorossiysk was the answer.
It was the place where they couldn't be reached.
But Ukraine reached them. More than 300 kilometers from the front line. And there is no third base. There is no other Russian port in the Black Sea with the infrastructure to house a fleet.
They have no option to move. Now come back with me to December of last year.
After a Ukrainian attack on a submarine inside that port, the Russians decided to solve the problem of naval drones once and for all. They closed the entrance to the port, placing barges and floating barriers across the mouth of the bay so that no surface drone could get in. And it worked. As a barrier against naval drones, it worked.
But pay attention to what else that does. If nothing gets in, nothing gets out.
That barrier that stops the Ukrainian drone from getting in is the same barrier that stops the Russian warship from getting out quickly.
So, when the attack came, the ships weren't maneuvering. They weren't spreading out.
They weren't heading out to open sea where they'd be harder targets. They were stationary, lined up at the dock, behind a barrier they built themselves.
A naval analyst wrote back in April that the protective walls of Novorossiysk had become a cage,
And that the Russian submarines started staying submerged, right at the anchorage without leaving, just so they wouldn't be seen by drones. That's the trap. They protected themselves from one threat and exposed themselves to another. And that's why this fleet stopped doing what a fleet does.
Ukrainian military analysts summed it up like this: the Russian Black Sea Fleet no longer projects power at sea. It only supports operations on land.
Think about how far it's fallen. This is the same fleet that years ago used to send groups of ships to the Mediterranean and fired cruise missiles from various different positions. Today, it fires from a small patch of sea near Novorossiysk and doesn't leave the port. And there's something that I think sums it all up. While Novorossiysk was burning, Putin appeared in a video aboard the cruiser Varyag near Sakhalin in the far east of Russia, 8,000 kilometers away. He was watching an exercise of the Pacific Fleet with 60 ships and 13,000 service members. And he took the opportunity to threaten Europe, saying that he could seize European merchant ships. A fleet putting on a show of force for the camera. The other one getting beaten up at home, unable to leave the dock. Stop and notice how complicated this war has become for Russia. Novorossiysk is also the terminus of a pipeline that brings oil from Kazakhstan and is partly owned by two American companies, Chevron and Exxon. According to the Financial Times, at the end of July, the American Vice President, J.D. Vance, called Zelensky and asked Ukraine to stop attacking the ships that serve this pipeline. And Ukraine complied. That night, with the entire port on fire, that specific structure was not touched. In other words, Ukraine is operating within a map that has targets it can hit and targets it can't. And part of that map is drawn by the United States. What became clear after seeing these attacks is that they weren't just about 4 ships. Russia started this war as the master of the Black Sea. It had Crimea, it had Sevastopol, it had an entire fleet. And Ukraine, well, it had practically no navy at all. Today, Ukraine still has no navy. And the Russian fleet is cornered in a port behind a barrier it built itself, being hit from the air while the president poses for a photo in another ocean. This didn't happen in a battle. It happened gradually, attack by attack, until there was no safe place left. And Zelensky warned that it's not over. He said that the Russian fleet and everything that supports it will continue to be unsafe as long as this war goes on. And we will continue to follow the developments of this story. So, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. That way you'll stay up to date with everything that happens. The question is, where are these ships going? And the answer, at least for now, is that there's nowhere for them to go. See you in the next video.